Hello and welcome back to Perspectives. Yes, we're back, and I'm sure you've noticed just a little bit of change around here. Yes, the new studio is just about up and running. We'll be going live soon, but as we step towards that, we're just testing out the new studio. Things will undoubtedly go wrong, and I'm still working out which buttons to press, but we're getting there, so please bear with us as we get to grips with this very complicated setup. And of course, assuming the buttons work as they should, I'm joined as always by our very own correspondent in Canada, James Cousineau. Good morning, James.
Maybe I should put you in touch with my ex-wife, Angus. She always knew which buttons to push. But good morning, and good morning to our viewers out there. Welcome back to another show. We appreciate your patience as we work our way through the new system. And of course, I'm still on the old system, so I'm good. It's poor Angus over there who's going to be turning 3 more shades of gray, trying to sort it out as we get through the show. And of course, at the end, all of your great comments. Stick around.
Indeed, and as James said, I'm getting a little bit too old to learn this stuff. But anyway, James and I together will be bringing you our perspectives on the daily news affecting the Sikh community across the world. And we'll be bringing you our usual roundup of the big stories around the world, and then we'll discuss a senior Austrian politician, a former podcast guest of the show as it turns out, who's once again called for the establishment of Khalistan in light of Narendra Modi's butting up to his friends in Moscow, so do stay tuned for that. And of course, at the end of the show, as always, we'll take a look at a few of your comments that have been filling up below the videos. So thank you to our audience for that. Right, James, let us get underway. What are you going to start us off with this morning?
Well, generally, we have been starting out the show with a roundup of news from around the world, but we have one specific story that we really wanted to cover, at least I wanted to bring, given the time of year that we're at, with kids going back to school, youth as well, and the questions around mental health, especially when it comes to the Sikh diaspora. There's a lot of stigma and problems that, you bring from old times, especially with the older generations. So therefore, I thought it was important for us to take a look at mental health issues. But the bigger pressing issue that brings this to the forefront is an individual who was recently shot by the LAPD. Now, this individual was waving a machete as they described it originally, but it turns out that he was actually practicing his Sikh martial art in the streets of LA. Now, there was a mental health part to this story, and we're going to take a look at the freshly released LAPD footage and information that they have released so far. We will continue on this conversation tomorrow night and probably third night as well about mental health in the whole community and new programs that are coming out to help the Sikh as well as other South Asian communities when it comes to not just here in Canada and the US but around the world dealing with mental health stigmas and trying to reach out for new programs that are open to help people get through crises. So without further ado, let's get on to the video here so you can watch that. And I will warn people ahead of time that there may be offensive language and there may be scenes in this that are not appropriate for younger viewers or for sensitive viewers. So please be advised of that. And again, this is the video that's been put out from the Los Angeles Police Department in relation to the shooting of Mr. Singh.
Incident community briefing is intended to provide you with information about an officer-involved shooting that occurred in Central Division in the city of Los Angeles. You're about to see relevant video footage and learn about other evidence and police procedures related to the case so you can have a better understanding of what occurred based on what we know right now. The LAPD conducts very thorough use of force investigations, which typically require investigators to interview multiple witnesses, view numerous hours of video footage, and analyze a significant amount of forensic evidence. We are still at the very early stages of this investigation, which can often take up to a year to complete, and our understanding of the incident may change as this additional evidence is collected, analyzed, and reviewed. We also do not draw any conclusions about whether the officers acted consistent with our policies and the law until all the facts are known and the investigation is complete. A word of caution: the images and information you're about to see may be disturbing. When a police officer uses force to arrest a suspect or defend against an attack, it can be graphic and difficult to watch. In addition, there may be strong language used by those in the video. Viewer discretion is advised, especially for younger children and sensitive viewers. This incident occurred
Seem to have lost sound there, James.
And threatening passerbys.
Is that better?
The 911
Yeah.
calls and corresponding radio broadcast.
Yes, I'm calling because someone, there is a guy on Figueroa in Figueroa in Olympic. There is a guy with a machete on it and with training people, stopping the traffic, and he's training people to kill him. And he's in a black Mustang. I think it's a black Mustang, but I don't have to get away. But he's screaming right now and training people to the
He was on the crazy.
He's looks like an Indian. But it's important that he parked his car in the middle of the street and he has a machete. It's a gray, kind of a brown shirt. Right.
You have shorts and what color shirt?
Yeah, and he has short and he has some. Oh my God, hold on. But he's moving now. He's moving now to the. Oh my God. I want to give you the license plate, but I'm afraid he might cancel my car and give me my sheriff. He's right next to the. Shit. Okay, run. License plate is
Hi, I am on the cross streets of Olympic and Figueroa in the city of Los Angeles, and there is a man with a sword in the middle of the intersection, and he is screaming and he looks dangerous and he's swinging at cars.
He's black, white, Hispanic, or Asian?
He's definitely brown. I don't know if he's Hispanic or Middle Eastern. He has like a head scarf, like covering his face and his head.
What color is it?
The scarf is blue.
Do you recall what color shirt?
I don't recall what color shirt. I got out of the area.
Okay. What about pants?
He's wearing cargo shorts, light colored cargo shorts. I don't recall the color. And he's parked in the middle of the intersection. It's a black, I believe it's a Charger.
Okay.
Dodge Charger.
And that's parked in the middle of the intersection?
Yes.
And he's swinging at just random passerbys?
Vehicles that are passing by. It's pretty empty, but the vehicles that are just trying to continue on through traffic, he's swinging at them. Okay. Trying to get traffic to halt. And traffic's not stopping, but swinging at them.
Okay, so I have a call for Olympic and Figueroa. We'll go ahead and get somebody out there, okay?
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, no problem. Bye-bye.
Hi, can I get police to the intersection of Figueroa and Olympic? I have a individual with a blue tarp on his head. He's waving a machete in the middle of the street.
The suspect was later identified as Gurpreet Singh. A portion of this incident was captured by security footage from a nearby security camera. So at that point, he had sliced his tongue with the sword there, but the officers located Singh standing next to his Dodge Challenger in the middle of the street, armed with a machete. As officers positioned their police vehicles to contact Singh, he quickly charged at officers while still armed with a machete. The officers redeploy and begin to give Singh verbal commands to stop and drop the machete. However, Singh did not comply with the officers' commands, returned to his Dodge Challenger, retrieved a water bottle and threw it at officers. He then entered his Dodge Challenger and drove away southbound on Figueroa Street while waving the machete outside the driver's side window. A portion of this incident was captured on the responding officer's digital and car video. Most marked vehicles assigned to patrol have a camera mounted inside which activates when the emergency lights are turned on. The camera can also be manually activated. These digital in-car videos have a buffer of video without audio. Upon activation, the camera goes back 1 minute and starts recording.
Right there, come on. Oh, fuck. Stand by, stand by. No. Stay in the car. Stay in the car. Stay in the car. Stand by, stand by. No, quarter. Go up. Stand by. Stand by, stand by, stand by. Get in, get in, bro. Get in. Go, get in. Follow him because of the fucking stand by. Stand by. Stand by, man. Stand by, man. Stand by, man. Stand by. Drop it! Get in. Get in the car, man. Get in. Stop! Stop, bro, shoot! Get in. Hey, quick shoot! Get in the car now. Go driver. Down on big one.
The officers activated their police vehicle's emergency lights and siren and initiated a vehicle pursuit. Singh continued south on Figueroa Street a short distance. As he passed west at 12th Street, Singh suddenly stopped his Dodge Challenger, then began driving erratically in a circular motion on the street and attempting to ram responding officers with his vehicle. Singh continued driving in a circular motion and ultimately collided with a police vehicle. He then reversed and continued driving in a circular motion on the street. Moments later, Singh stopped his vehicle, exited while still armed with a machete, and once again charged at the officers, resulting in an officer-involved shooting and a 40mm less lethal foam projectile round discharged. Here is additional digital in-car video from the officers involved in this incident.
20 pursuit, Figueroa, South of 11. On that vehicle, gonna be a black Charger, then back to the plate.
I think that's very good.
49, it's gonna be for an ADW on appeal. Hey, Airship, take my air, please. Yeah, but I'm sorry. One around, he's right around. My side. Am I stand by? Stand by. We're good. Stand by. Right, just trying to wrap another officer. Stand by. And we'll good. Stand by. Around the triple. Stand by. Crossfire roll.
A portion of this incident was captured on the responding officer's body-worn video. Body-worn video cameras are used by most officers assigned to field duties. They're worn at chest level and capture a general perspective within line of sight from that angle. The angle of the camera prohibits viewers from seeing every incident.
Stop! Shots fired. Officer needs help. Stand by. Crossfire, bro. Stand by.
The 40mm less lethal device fires a foam projectile round. The round strikes the person's body and is intended to cause pain. While there may be bruising, it is designed to distribute energy over a broad surface area and not penetrate the body. The primary target of this less lethal device is the navel or belt line. Here is additional body-worn video from one of the officers involved in the incident.
There's a bill of E-charge in the middle of the street. Drive the mic over southbound, guys, slow it down, and just use southbound, guys.
Here is additional digital in-car video from the officers involved in this incident. A portion of this incident was also captured by security footage from Singh was struck by gunfire, dropped the machete, and fell to the ground. The officers immediately requested a rescue ambulance. Moments later, and after the arrival of additional units, Singh was taken into custody without further incident. Here is additional body-worn video from one of the officers involved in the incident.
Okay, all right, you guys ready to approach? Moving forward.
Hey, don't move, bro. No, don't move. Don't move.
After being taken into custody, the officers began to render medical aid to Singh until paramedics arrived. Medical aid for Singh. He was transported to a local hospital to be treated for the gunshot wounds he sustained as a result of the officer-involved shooting. However, a few days later, on July 17, 2025, Singh succumbed to his injuries and was pronounced deceased by medical staff. Investigators recovered a 27-inch long machete with a 21 3/4-inch blade at the scene and booked it as evidence. Gurpreet Singh was a 35-year-old resident of Arcadia. In the next several months, the LAPD will continue to investigate and analyze this incident. We will continue interviewing any new witnesses that may come forward with any forensic tests. After the investigation is complete, our Critical Incident Review Division will forward their findings to the Chief of Police, who will make his recommendation to the Civilian Board of Police Commissioners. The board will evaluate the evidence to determine whether the officer's tactics, drawing and exhibiting a weapon, and the use of deadly force in this instance met the high standards expected of all LAPD officers. Additionally, the Office of the Inspector General will conduct a parallel and independent review of the investigation and will provide its recommendations to the board. If you would like more information on how the LAPD investigates all serious uses of force, visit lapdonline.org, where you can find the LAPD's use of force policy and procedures. Thank you for taking the time.
So as you can see, Angus, it was quite the dramatic situation and the traumatizing situation for the community that was there to witness such a horrific act. However, this brings to light a very big question, and that is about mental health and also how they respond in Los Angeles to such calls. Now, it's only been a few months. In January of 2025, whistleblowers within the Los Angeles Police Department blew the whistle and actually released footage and recordings of voices that were heard being very racist, misogynistic, sexist, but just out and out blatantly, totally pollutant to the environment of the LAPD. What's even more concerning is that all of these videos were actually recording officers that are responsible for the recruitment and the hiring of officers for the new pool. And that is, of course, a bigger concern. When you have officers that are responsible for recruiting, they are going to be looking at the potential of the like-minded individuals, we'll say, in a polite way to put it. So the real question about the problem of racial bias, as well as racial thoughts and sexism, as well as many other contributing factors, could have played a role in this. However, that is early to speculate or to find anything concrete in the investigation. As I said, this video was just released a few days ago, and it has already gone viral over the internet, but also drawing a lot more criticism from the different Sikh organizations throughout California and throughout the United States. The questions are being asked why there was not more use of non-lethal force, such as the weapon that you saw in the video itself. Of course, that would be, an ideal situation, but at the same time, you did see how Mr. Singh was in a mental health crisis and was charging officers. So that's something that we're going to continue on tomorrow night. Because the video was so long and our show is so short, I wanted to make sure that you saw the full context of the video so that you understand as we move forward, talking about the mental health, the new programs and initiatives that are being brought in to help people of minority groups and diasporas to help them gain access. But this, I thought, was a very, very key issue in terms of the discussion on mental health and the lack of available resources and response to people in crises when it comes to different groups. And that is a real shame that it took the life of an individual who, again, was obviously in some type of crisis that they weren't able to take it down or to de-escalate before this ended in tragedy, Angus.
Yes, James, it is deeply tragic, this. There are no winners in this story at all, and an awful lot of losers. You have to feel for, obviously, the police officers involved in this. It was, how hard it is for them. Yeah, they patrol the streets daily, literally risking their lives on a daily basis. And unfortunately, they came across this poor individual. And I say poor individual because clearly it was a mental health issue. This guy just, he was gone. Whatever his issues were, he was clearly not in his right mind. Sadly, he had access to a very large machete, and the police had no choice. You can't let a guy like that having a mental health episode loose on the streets of the general public. Unfortunately, we've had very many similar incidents here in the UK. Certainly, some of our ethnic minorities have gone through similar episodes, and it's actually, to be honest, it's quite scandalous. We can't have the proper open debate about this because, again, there's always a charge of racism. Sadly, in this LAPD situation, there were clearly issues of racism behind the scenes. But again, I've got to slightly temper that with saying, look, these guys really are at the sharp end. It's very easy to judge from our armchairs. These guys are literally out there facing these guys face to face, and they're coming up against a big guy with a very large machete. You are really going to be pushed yourself to your own very mental limits as well.
And he was charging at the officer as he was exiting the vehicle as well, Angus.
Exactly, and it's very clear to me that the whole situation was justified. I think the LAPD have come out indeed to try and justify the situation. It does make sense, and I think they, certainly from my armchair, it's very easy to say I don't think they did anything wrong. But as I say, it's very hard. One of the issues we have here in the UK, which I don't know if they have the debate in the States, is access to knives. It's very, very hard to buy a knife here in the UK. I mean, literally, if I want to go buy a knife in my kitchen to cut my vegetables, it's a real process to even buy a knife as a 50-something-year-old. And so it is hard to get access to knives here. Likewise, on the internet, there are restrictions in the UK. You can't buy long knives over a certain length over the internet, again, to try and avoid these dreadful incidents. It's not, obviously it's criminal as well, but also the mental health. As I say, James, I don't think there are any winners in this, and there also, it's also worth mentioning that the death by police suicide issue, which comes in on a sadly regular basis, where people literally commit suicide by charging at police deliberately, knowing the police are armed, knowing that the police are going to shoot them, and they charge at the police saying, well, come and kill me. In other words, they don't have the courage to kill themselves, but they let the police do it. And again, you've got to feel for the poor policeman who has to pull that trigger, and he's going to spend the rest of his life thinking about that moment he's just taken another person's life. So again, very sad. And I think the only lessons to be learned from this, the LAPD, I think, yes, they've got to investigate non-lethal force and the use of it. Again, easier said than done. Secondly is, why are there so many people with mental health issues out in our streets? Here in the UK, it's a real problem. It's a endemic problem in our society, because governments have cut so much costs in mental health care that now there are people out in the streets who traditionally would have been put in safe places and taken care of. Now they're literally out in the streets trying to take care of themselves, and they have episodes like this, and people die or get hurt. Again, very, very tragic, James. No winners in this one.
Absolutely, Angus. And from my opinion of viewing the whole situation, I would say that tragically and unfortunately, the police were within protecting each other and themselves in this shoot. But again, I wasn't there, so it's hard for me to say. However, it brings, as I said, a much bigger picture, and that is mental health concerns and mental health resources and the ongoing battle to try and help people when there is so much stigmatism and they are afraid to speak out and ask for the help. So tomorrow night we'll continue on with that. And given the importance of this topic, I've actually got tomorrow night we'll have our report in depth as well as our PDF file that we will post afterwards onto our Substack channel. And I've actually had it translated into both Hindi and Punjabi as well, because we want to make sure this information reaches the widest possible audience to help with this issue, Angus.
Great stuff, James. Okay, let's move on to my first story, and I'm delighted to report about a gentleman that has been a podcast guest in the past. I interviewed this gentleman, a guy called Gunther Fehlinger. Now, Gunther Fehlinger, he's quite a character. This guy, he's an Austrian politician, and he's linked, according to various social media outlets, they say he's the most senior representative of NATO in Austria. I'm not sure that is the case. I think people got that slightly wrong. But he's a slightly maverick politician in the sense although he is mainstream, his views are quite controversial, to put it mildly. And he's called all sorts of things out in the past that have upset all sorts of vested interests. In other words, he's not afraid of telling it like it is, and certainly making his views public. And as a result, one of the things he called out some time ago, it must be maybe 18 months, 2 years ago, he very publicly came out and said, look, we need to break up the BRICS economies, particularly Russia and India. And of course, it was the India comments that really rose the hackles of certainly the Indian nation and the Indian government. And of course, Hindutva forces were really upset by this thing that he'd said. And basically, he was saying we need to establish Khalistan. We need to establish all these different states around India as independent nations, because they have the natural democratic sovereign right as a people under a democratic nation to call for their own self-determination. And he said it also serves the West. And this is where it got really important. He said it serves the West's interest to break up India. It is really important for the West because at the moment India is falling into bed with Russia, and that was the concern 2 years ago, and even more so, of course. We talked a lot about this recently, James, with the Ukrainian war. And so he's come out again, and he said this very publicly again just in the last few days, and he said, I call to dismantle India as part of genocidal Putin axis. Now this of course comes in the wake of what recently happened. We had the Xi Jinping of China hosted this meeting in China recently, where all the world's dictators sort of met up around the table, embraced and shook hands and said, welcome to dictator heaven. And that, of course, included Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping himself, Kim Jong-un from North Korea. We had Belarus there, South Africa, Iran was there. So they're all in attendance. All the usual suspects were in attendance, all shaking hands. But, of course, Narendra Modi was there. Narendra Modi was the only leader from a so-called democratic nation sitting around this table, shoulder to shoulder with these despots. I mean, again, no wonder it raised eyebrows, to put it mildly, here in the West. And Gunther Fehlinger, of course, jumped straight on this and said, look, I told you so. I told you we could not trust Narendra Modi. We cannot trust the Indian government. I've got to be careful here, because it's not the Indian people. It is the Indian government we cannot trust, certainly under the BJP and ultimately under its rule of the RSS, because they are taking India as a nation more into bed with Moscow. Now, of course, we've talked a lot traditionally about the history between Delhi and Moscow. It runs deep ever since the British moved out in 1947. There is this very deep tie between Moscow and Delhi, but we'd had hoped, and the West have been trying very, very hard in recent years to seduce India away from the partnership it was had formed with Moscow, and certainly increasing relations with China. So the West has been trying very hard using the carrot and stick approach to seduce but also punish India, saying, look, the closer you get to Moscow, the more we will punish you, but the further away from Moscow you get, the more we will reward you with various commercial contracts, etc., etc. But has it worked? It doesn't seem to be. As I say, just only 10 days ago or so, we saw Modi embracing Putin and shaking hands with Xi Jinping in China. Now, Gunther Fehling came out with this statement reminding everybody, saying, as I say, I told you so. And so he has called once again to break up India. We need to break up India and we need to establish Khalistan. And unsurprisingly, this has caused his X account, his Twitter account in India to be banned. I mean, no surprise there. So are we, and so are half of the democratic world, whoever dare hold the Indian government to account. So again, it's almost a mark of pride to be banned in India if you're a media outlet. And he did say again, I call to dismantle India into ex-India. He's called it now ex-India. So basically he's saying we need to take the step forward, breaking up India, and India needs to become a former country. Don't forget, India is a relatively new nation. It was only formed in 1947 as an independent nation. Before that it was part of the British Empire. So again, it is only a relatively new nation. So in fact, break up India isn't quite as radical as certainly the Indian government seems to feel it is. As he says, Narendra Modi, and he makes no ambiguity about this, Narendra Modi is Russia's man. We need a friend of freedom for Khalistan. So what he's saying, and he flags up on his X account, he flagged up this map he showed up 2 years ago, which shows the independent nation of Khalistan. And he says, yes, we do need Khalistan because he recognises the very fact that Khalistan, when it is established, will be a democratic nation, a genuinely democratic nation, run under the rule of law, are all the principles that align deeply with the West, and therefore on every level will be a friend of the West. Now, unsurprisingly, the Godi media has gone absolutely crazy about this. They've been frothing at the bit. They're really unhappy about this, unsurprisingly. And every media outlet has covered it. And of course, they put their pro-BJP spin on it and say, this guy's a lunatic, he's an idiot, what does he know? It's dangerous, he should be reported, etc. And I'm picking just one from many, just at random. And they say, Gunther Fehlinger's statements also went as far as branding Prime Minister Modi a Russian man, suggesting India's current foreign policy alignment is skewed towards Moscow. Well, I've got news for you guys, clearly. It is. We do know it is, and it has been for some time, certainly since 1947. Who actually has paid for most of your military? Who has actually supplied most of your Royal Navy? Your Royal Navy, it's not Royal, beg your pardon, it's the UK Navy. Your Indian Navy. Who supplied most of your ships? It's come from Russia. Who supplied most of your arms and ammunition? It's come from Russia. And they report that this Austrian economist and political activist has triggered outrage, they say, well, only amongst the Indian Hindutva supporters, after making these provocative remarks on X. And they say that he labelled it as ex-India. In his posts and videos, Fehlinger openly expressed support for separatist movements, including, of course, the Khalistan movement. And I do urge you to go back through our channel and find my interview with Gunther Fehlinger. It was actually a very interesting interview, and he does elaborate more on what he was talking about. And he said, so on X, he circulated this map showing all the various states, but included Punjab, the northwestern Indian states. He actually, and again, this map was a little bit arbitrary. We don't know who specifically put it together. It isn't a definite map of the boundaries of Khalistan, but according to this map, it does include Punjab, of course, Delhi, indeed, Uttar Pradesh and Rajasthan. And J&K was depicted as belonging to Pakistan. Of course, that is not surprising, of course, being a primarily Islamic state, and so it is assumed that it would be subsumed into Pakistan, although J&K is looking for its own independence. And of course, that move as well also drew sharp criticism online, as they say. And then the article does go on about saying how sensitive it is in India. Well, of course it is. It's only sensitive amongst the Indian government and the RSS because they are terrified of this actually happening. And it says the map triggered backlash online. Of course, the Hindutva forces were out there in absolute force. They labelled Fehlinger as a troll. I think that's the least of what he was labelled actually on social media. Shiv Sena, one of the MPs of the Lok Sabha, Priyanka Chaturvedi. Shiv Sena MPs, Priyanka Chaturvedi. Apologies for my pronunciation there. She urged the Ministry of External Affairs to raise the issue diplomatically with Russia, saying, "What insanity is this? They must take this up with the Austrian embassy." So she's actually saying we need to go to diplomatic levels on this. We need to raise it with the Austrian government. Well, unfortunately, again, I've got news for you. This is what's called freedom of speech. This is what we do in the West, in democratic nations. Clearly, you don't do it in India, but out here in the West, we can say pretty much what we want as long as it doesn't break the law. We can call for secessionism. I can demand that London becomes independent, and I won't have people knocking on my door, taking me away to arrest me, etc. We can do that here in the democratic West. So clearly the Indian culture has been so inured into this RSS, you must not talk about secessionism or you'll get locked up, etc. And then the article goes on. And it does talk about it, and they say Phelan is not an official representative of any government. His remarks have gained traction online, fueling concerns over external attempts to interfere in India's internal matters. Well, again, it's a joy to see this actually, because I mean, well done to Gunter Phelan, because again, as I said, he tells it like it is, but he's not afraid of coming out with the obvious, and he does highlight. And there are some very serious points in here. First of all, the people of Northwest India do have the democratic right, if India is a democratic nation, to call for their own independence. But secondly, he does point out that for the West, it is actually in the West's interest that Khalistan is established, that India is actually broken up, because as it stands, if it does align with India and with Russia and China, that forms a very dangerous threat to the Western axis of democracies, because it adds India's weight, and that is not inconsiderable. It adds India's weight to the likes of Russia and China. And as I say, we have tried very hard to get India on side, to align with supposedly democratic values, to align with the West, so that we can help counter this growing threat from China, James. And I think this is very concerning.
Absolutely, and it's something that we talk about quite often, and that is the restrictive language by the India government to go after and target anybody, whether it is in Australia, in the UK. It doesn't matter if you are speaking out against Modi, you're speaking out against the India government. They're going to come after you, and it may be publicly in the media, or they could be silently coming to your door. So again, a real big concern when it comes to the world of India politics and their transnational repression. But at the same time, it's interesting to see how this is continually gaining more steam in terms of the sovereignty of different parts of India, especially for Khalistan, and starting to see it hit the hit the international political stage for people to have the broader discussions about it, Angus.
Indeed. And once again, it just highlights the fact that the Khalistan issue is once again hitting the mainstream. It's very encouraging that once again, the whole Khalistan issue has become so high profile now that it is being discussed and debated by politicians in Europe. And of course, the US have reported in the past. So that the wider debate is spreading and it's hitting the mainstream, which is fantastic. And unsurprising that the Godi media are frothing at the mouth about it. So anyway, let's move on, James. Let's move on to our comments column. And I'm just going to zip through these again because we're running out of time with all the technical issues with the new studios. We need to wrap up as quickly as we can. But yes, I'm delighted to say we had loads of lovely comments, and thank you to our audience as always for those. And I did a podcast with Dr. Graywell last week, and we talked about Mahatma Gandhi, and it's a subject that has cropped up before. And Dr. Graywell gave us a bit of a quite a concerning insight into this supposedly legendary sort of figure of Mahatma Gandhi. He really was not the person that certainly we in the West believed. Richard Attenborough made a film about him, a very famous film back in the 1980s. It won loads of Oscars, 8 Oscars, I think. And it depicted this Mahatma Gandhi, this Gandhi character, this incredibly powerful, incredibly peace-loving, benign character. And in fact, if you watch my interview with Dr. Graywell, the truth is really very different. Sam Singh says, most people don't know Gandhi was racist. He was indeed, as it came out. He was in South Africa for quite a period of time, and he referred to the blacks in South Africa as Kafirs, and he really saw himself as an Indian as far superior to the blacks, and he made no secret of that. So again, more evidence has emerged since about his racism. He was homosexual when he was in South Africa. He had a white boyfriend and also loved teenage girls. And again, it's quite I would say, a distasteful side to his personal life. Again, watch the podcast if you want to know more about that. Said he loved his goat as well. We can't really comment about that, but TC follows up, and this did indeed, this quote, this is interesting, and TC picks up the quote, cotton wool and Vaseline was found, I think, on his mantelpiece or something by one eyewitness, James. So again, this guy, it just shows the power of PR, of public relations. If you can get your image created by somebody powerful, you can really change the truth about the sort of person that you are.
Absolutely, and especially when you get the Hollywood narrative and the powerful Hollywood machine involved. That is one of the biggest propagators of propaganda, or the motivators of misinformation, is the tickets at the box office. If it sells, they're going to create it. If it means they have to change the narrative or change an entire aura around a person, then they're going to do it, because it's all in the interest of the trying to create a hero, and the heroes sell tickets at the box office. Angus? Indeed.
As they say, he who controls the narrative controls history, effectively. Bobby Singh.
That's right.
Okay, we're coming back to this debate will continue, no doubt. This is about the flooding, the terrible situation of flooding. We're still obviously going on. Social media full of incredible pictures, videos from the heroic deeds, I have to say, from the Sikh community, particularly in the Punjab, and of course the diaspora, who have been raising so many funds to provide help and resources and aid to those in need. Bobby Singh says Punjab should actually stop paying tax to Delhi if Delhi is not sending any help to the Punjab after these terrible floods. All that tax collected is given to the BJP states and in turn to RSS, etc. So yeah, and I think this is a valid point, James. If you as a state are paying all this tax, you do expect something in return. And if you're in a crisis, you do expect your central government to provide some aid. If it's not there, you have to question, well, why am I paying any tax then?
Absolutely, and let's not forget what we spoke about last week, Angus, in terms of the insurance scheme and that as well, that the BJP and the government has been fighting against as well. So again, that would have brought in a lot of emergency aid to the farmers and to the people in need, and yet the government's been pushing back on this. And here's a prime example as to why it is a great idea to get this insurance program going.
Indeed. And Hat B sort of follows that. Well, look, there is a lot of potential here for community unrest. Well, I think at the moment people are a bit more concerned about saving their own lives because of the flooding. But it does create a lot of anger, particularly within the Punjab, to add to the already high levels of tension and anger in the state anyway. As you say, meanwhile, BJP directly drowning Punjab. Yeah, it is. I mean, again, there is this accusation that it's not incompetence. It is a deliberate policy of certainly the RSS. And then you added at the end, my like has not been counted on this video. Slightly concerning, but again, not surprisingly, as you well know, and we do talk a lot, James, about the fact that we do know we're shadow banned. We do know that a lot of comments disappear magically. So it's not surprising that even a like would disappear, James.
Absolutely. If you're not logged into your account, then of course it won't record the likes either. So sometimes I find that I'll be watching a video and then I'll go to like it, but I'll realize that I wasn't signed in. So that could be an issue. In terms of the potential for community unrest, yes, desperation and panic definitely adds to emotion, which of course can contribute to unrest and volatility. So again, yeah, you're absolutely right on that point as well.
And final set, Love Puneet Dajoka says, just another observation, you have auto-generated captions available for nearly every other language in the world. Where is Punjabi? Simple answer, I don't know. I'm sure many more would benefit if you can break through the language barrier, absolutely. And you say voice dubbing is now also available. Well, James, this is probably more your department than me, but I know that you can get different languages in the captions. Is there Punjabi? I don't know. We'll have to investigate that.
A lot of I was actually just looking for that the other day when I was doing the translation of the articles. And again, YouTube is a part of Google, and Google doesn't have in their translation service that I have through my various programs. Google or the parent company doesn't have Punjabi yet. They are adding more languages all the time, but again, they don't have Punjabi, so I had to go to another source to have that translated for tomorrow.
Yeah, indeed. We'll continue looking into that, so thank you for pointing that out. Karam Singh, yes, again, the story writes itself, as we say every time we talk about the flooding. Yes, we all know the solution. India knows very well what the answer is, and that's what they're afraid of course, an independent Khalistan. And Avtar Singh follows that with a well-thought-out comment saying, yeah, basically, and he talks about how actually we would, in Khalistan, manage the water better. Of course, in the monsoon seasons, when we've got a deluge, we've got an excess of water, of course, we'll build facilities to store it. We'll put, we'll have dams, we'll have various reservoirs, etc. We can store it, so when the dry months come in the dry season, of course, we'll have plenty of water to irrigate what is currently the breadbasket of India. So it's not rocket science, James. It's just all about sensible water management, which can only happen under our own management of Khalistan.
And don't forget to put those giant taps in to turn the water on and off like they have in California.
Indeed, and the final comment of the day goes to Mandip Sangha. This way we need Khalistan. I mean, we can't argue with that one, James, can we?
Yeah, and I'm assuming they meant this is why we need it. But yeah, we got the point. So yeah, absolutely.
Indeed, and on that note, I'm going to bring Perspectives to a close. Hopefully we got the buttons just about right. I don't know if we got it completely right, but apologies, please do be forgiving. This is the first show under the new technical auspices of the new studio, and I think there may have been sound issues and all sorts of other issues, so apologies for that, but we'll hopefully get it right as time passes on. Do keep your comments coming in. Let us know your thoughts on the new studio as well, if you think there's things that we can improve on. Obviously, but be kind, because we know there's lots still to sort out. But in the meantime, thanks very much to our audience. Thank you for sticking with us, and do keep watching. Do keep the comments coming in about all the issues, not just the studio, about things that we talked about today, and we'll cover those in a future show. But in the meantime, that is it. It is a goodbye from me. It is a goodbye from James.
Take care, everyone. Stay safe out there. And for my neighbors, I can still hear the music just pounding away across from the studio here. It's it's a great party going for the week, so I assume somebody's getting married.
Let's hope so. Indeed. Well, that's it. That's Perspectives for another day. We will see you next time.